Alright everybody, I'm Josh Cassidy and I'm an ESE teacher at Yulee High School, and I support facilitate for the social studies department, and usually I do world history and US history. Today I'm going to share with my unit plan that I made, and it's going to focus more towards world history. So to go ahead and get started, I went ahead and did my unit unit plan on World War I. So it's a pretty broad unit. It's got a lot of information in it, so I tried to do my best to simplify it down. To go ahead and show you, this is my actual first page of the unit plan before I go into any of the lessons. There's the materials I'll need. Our class is here at 55 minutes. We have 6 over here. All materials the kids will need. They'll need their textbook. They'll need the classroom PowerPoint, which I'll show them. There's Chromebooks with access to Google Classroom and the Internet, the World History Workbook, and the access to the Smart Board. The learning diversity, because I do teach ESE and have kids that are ELL learners also, I make sure I have all the necessary information provided for them. So as I highlighted here, I have the auditory presentation materials, extended time, whatever they need, I have it. Because my class, I do pull kids out and work with them in an ESE inclusive room, we have those resources, so it works out pretty well for them. For the standards, these are all the ones that will be covered when we talk about World War I, which I'll explain. It's everything that'll come from in there, along with the benchmarks. Let's see, further down here, for the behavioral objective, what I wrote for this unit is students will be able to describe and explain the causes, effects, consequences of World War I and its impact on the world. Students will be able to show mastery by showing a 90% accuracy on the unit exam. And I include that as well. I have it down here. The exam they'll have to take with it. And I'll go ahead and just pick one of these chapters to show you. And to me, I think my best one is chapter 29, because it does have a few things in there that I haven't used previously when it comes to strategy shares. So I'll go ahead and click on that. There we go. Okay, so for this lesson, this is going to focus going into World War I. So unfortunately, when they're in 10th grade, they really don't have much. The most recent back knowledge they have is either on their own or from 8th grade. That's the last time they'll really take a social science class where they'll get that information. So a lot of them are pretty rusty. So just to go ahead and show you exactly what this one will entail, is the behavior objective of this one is we're just going to focus on the causes of the Great War, World War I, identify the countries that are involved, and the two alliance system. They'll be able to do this with 100% accuracy because the two alliance systems and the causes are going to be something they have to know. We're going to use the acronym called MAIN, and M-A-I-N, and each letter stands for something that they'll be able to understand from the war and what caused it. So they'll definitely have to know that. Very important. For the engagement, how this class will start is I'm going to lead a discussion that's going to just be a parent share, which I have here. And how it will work is the students, they're going to get into groups, and I'm going to give them the 4 basic questions that they need. The 4 basic questions is who was involved in World War I, where did it take place, what was the time frame of the conflict, and why did the fighting erupt, which was pretty much the causes. And I'm not going to teach them anything else prior to this. I just want to see what they know. So they're going to have a partner. They're going to share with their partner what they think it is. Then after the discussion, we're going to go around and see what each person says. And surprisingly, a lot of them have different views. Some of them mix them up with World War II, which is terrifying, but it does happen. And a lot of them get them both confused. They get the World War II causes confused with the World War I causes, and so on and so forth. So once they do all that, we'll go and we'll compare, just so I can kind of treat it as a diagnostic and get their prior information out. The next one, what I have down here is they're going to engage in a reading assessment. And one thing that I thought was pretty cool with this, and what I'm going to use for this one, is when they do the reading, I'm going to include exactly what they need to read, but I'm going to break them up into groups. They're going to have groups of 4, and what they will do is they will read certain sections. One person will be in charge of one paragraph, another paragraph, and so forth. And they're going to read the individual paragraph, and then after they're done, they'll compare them with each other. Once they compare them, then they have a better insight, and they can also see different perspectives of the material that was read in the paragraph. Also, they'll have to answer questions with it, which I put on here, questions 1 through 5 from the book. And this one they will do individually on their own, but I do want them working together and reading. That way they can see different perspectives of it so that they can get further in. The perspectives is very important. That's one thing that they need to see, especially when working with history, is how important those perspectives are, because a lot of this is, what you'll see later on the lesson plan, it's dealing with different sides. Once they have that, then we're going to go on to the PowerPoint presentation. And what I like to do is, well, first off, I can't talk more than 9 minutes, because I found out if you sit there and lecture for more than 9 minutes, you will lose them. So you got to keep them active. You got to keep them going. What it is it's just going to be over the first section is what I'm going to do in this PowerPoint. Now, they'll have 3 essential questions on here. All right, and these 3 essential questions will be written on the board, and it's one thing that they got to do. Now, as I'm going and talking, they always will relate back to one of the questions. So while I'm presenting the lesson, one question is, what forces in Europe created the greatest role in causing the outbreak of war? When they hear that, they go back and fill it out. So it's kind of like a guided reading in a way. But these are the essential questions they have to know from the presentation. And once they get it, they'll write it down. And these will be, like I said, very important. They got to know it. Usually around the board during the lecture, I'll only have I never do no more than 10 at a time when around the board. That way it kind of keeps them focused and keeps them learning and keeps them involved in it, because I just don't want to lose them. I learned after 9 minutes you will lose them in a lecture if you don't keep it interesting. The next one, what I have down, is the students will engage in a problem-solving activity over the map of Europe during World War I. Now, a lot of them, again, they haven't had geography since 6th grade. So a lot of them are unfamiliar with let alone what countries are in Europe. Furthermore, they're not very experienced with the continent of it. So I go ahead and I'll provide a map on here. Let me click and see exactly what happens. Okay, that's what I thought won't show up. What it is, it's just a blank map of Europe, and here it comes. Okay, it's a blank map of Europe, and what they will do is they will just go on and describe. They'll get colored pencils and they'll describe the alliances. So, for example, if they need to, they will need to color up an alliance. So let's just say blue represents the Triple Entente, which will be Great Britain here and France. They will color those areas in, and Russia at the beginning, and color this area in. The Central Powers, they'll cover Germany, and they'll color all the way down to Italy. So I just want them to get a visual representation of where everything's located, so they could see it. And of course that will be turned in. Main thing is seeing that geographical location. Once they get the color coordination, red could be the Central Powers, blue can be the Triple Entente. That way they can see exactly which side's fighting which, and they can see the landscape, what they're dealing with. For the evaluation, what I put on here is students will show understanding by completing the Section 1 quiz with at least 70% accuracy. So with this one, most of the time I've been doing Kahoot, but for this one they just have a quiz they need to do. So I'll just see if I can get that pulled up. And I have the rubric down here that will show it also. So it's pretty basic. This is everything they're going to cover in the chapter. Now when they do the reading, the first 4 are right there in the reading. The section is literally titled, Define Imperialism. All right, and they just talk about imperialism. All they have to do is just type it in right there. Or they could write it in, whichever they prefer. And they describe each one that was mentioned throughout the reading, or one thing that we talked about throughout class. I have the rubric down there as well. One more thing that I'll add is I'll come back here to the guided reading. So this right here, I think I did mention a little bit, but I just want to clarify. Most of the time when I give reading assignments, I used to, my first year teaching, I just had them do it individually. And it didn't take me long to realize that some of them go straight to the questions and answer it. So I don't really tend to tell them what questions they have to answer. Like these are only 1 through 5. Well, on there's 20 questions in each review. So sometimes it will vary up. So don't tell them what questions they need to answer until they actually do the reading. And I also found out that, of course, if you give them more than a few pages to read, they'll also, they'll lose themselves in it. They won't want to do it. So I like to have, if they're not doing the guided reading activity, I'll do it to where they have a concept map to fill out as they're doing the reading. For my ESE kids, what I do with them is I'll give them in paragraph by paragraph they have to define what they learned from each paragraph, because a lot of them have reading comprehensive issues. So each paragraph they read, they go on and write what they took from that paragraph. So they're kind of breaking it up and making it easier to comprehend. Another strategy that I just like to add on here is also the teach strategy. So I'll break the kids up and they will read. I'll put them in groups of 4 or 5. They'll have 3 to 4 in a group, and they will read each a section, and they'll elect a leader, and that leader has to teach that section to the class. And each section does that. Therefore, all of them are getting further perspective, and they're getting all the information taught to them in different ways. And again, it breaks the information up. That's the main thing, because there's so much in it, history, there's so much reading in it, that if you don't break it up and make it simple, it can drive you crazy, especially when you're dealing with students with disabilities. So that is my entire presentation. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to comment or ask. I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.